Thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to be amongst you, scholars, leaders of education. I think a lot has been said about EdTech, technology in education since morning. And I think I want to kind of what do you want me to do? Can you activate it? It's taking, okay. I want to start with a bold statement. And that is that education does not just need incremental transformation, it actually needs a complete rethink. Why do I even say that? The educational structures, as we all know, they have existed ever since Industry 1.0. We're living in Industry 4.0 and we're very rapidly moving towards Industry 5.0. How do we even imagine that what was relevant, the structures, the methodology, the modes that were relevant when we were moving into mass production for the first time and we needed people to work on assembly lines, that education is still relevant. How do we give ourselves the credence that that is so? I think that's the real question that we should all be asking ourselves. Because incremental will only take us that far, whereas what the external world and what our learners are demanding and what industry is demanding is something completely different. So if you're talking of rethinking education, I just spoke about this. What really is that is required? You absolutely need, again we've heard this, we need more creative people. We need cognitively flexible people, because no matter what you teach inside the classroom today, by the time your learner is out as an employee, that would have been outdated. That's the reality. But it's not just that, there is more than that. Cognitive flexibility is required because we are moving very rapidly into a hyper-personalization, service-oriented approach to everything that is happening. It's really no longer about, everybody having the same product, everybody having the same kind of service. It's moving more and more towards hyper-personalized product services approach. And if we are sitting here and teaching our students the same thing in the same way, how do we expect that they're going to develop that cognitive flexibility that will enable them to actually deliver the hyper-personalized service? I think that's the question that, again, I urge every one of us to ask. Of course, problem solving is a daily requirement today. And often one would have thought problem solving only comes once you are senior enough in the organization. But that's no longer true. An entry-level person is as required to think about identifying and solving problems as a leader of the organization itself, because that's the world that we live in. We need quick thinking. We also need decision making. And mind you, I'm not talking of any technical skills here at all. And there is a reason for that. Yes, you need all of the technical skills that everyone has been talking about. But tell me, in all of those technologies, what was happening 5 years ago, is it happening the same way today? It's not. So with the technical skills that students walk out with, if they don't have these, they're still going to flounder. Because the next level of learning, the next level of adaptation, the next level of flexibility is not something they will learn from outside, that will have to come from inside. So what can we do to actually enable that? quick introduction to our organization and what we do. And I'm going to come to how we kind of trying to, use technology, not for the sake of using technology, but for the sake of really engaging the learners and helping them develop the skill sets that will keep them relevant, not just as they step out of the university, but for the long term, because that's the requirement that we have. Our mission is really to accelerate job growth in emerging economies, and you might wonder what it is that we're doing in, in an EdTech conference, and I'll come to that. Our approach is to really accelerate this by scaling large-scale initiatives in innovation, entrepreneurship, vocational skilling, and in technology and policy integration with government. The initiatives are four-pronged, as I just stated. Why entrepreneurship? Because we believe that entrepreneurial skill sets are not just about starting up, which of course they are about, and that is definitely a goal that we have, but they are about creating this hyper-flexible, cognitively alive, problem-solving individual. And so you need that, every industry needs that. And for us, if we're talking about job creation, we need more and more young people who are both inspired and highly motivated to start up sooner rather than later. And to have the courage and the confidence and the early experience of doing entrepreneurship while they're still on campus. That's what drives that confidence, and that's what drives them to think beyond what they believe are their current possibilities. So entrepreneurial skill sets in effect should increase every single human's possibilities, no matter where they are and what they're doing. Skilling, again, I think again skilling is a very commonly used term. We've been, we moved from saying knowledge to skills, competencies. But once again, the bigger focus has always been on technical skills. When it is a whole lot of softer skills, job-ready skills, the skills to be highly productive on day one of joining an enterprise, which is critical and key, which is what employers look for. And there are still gaps in that. We focus on those gaps. Government digital transformation. This is really all about saying, how do we take the ambition that our governments have in India today, and we are an ambitious country. How do we take those ambitions and how do we prepare the officials and the bureaucrats that are sitting within government with all good intention and a lot of the public money to spend, how do we prepare them so they become much more savvy with technology that they can put into use in policies? Mind you, everything that we do goes towards real outputs and real outcomes. There is no skilling, there is no training, there is no education that is relevant if it cannot be implemented for results. And that's really the focus here, which is why very, very focused interventions. The last but not the least is the focus on innovation and research. Once again, we believe that innovation, particularly innovation that can lead to commercialization of new technologies and new products from within academia, is the way to go. Now many of you, since you're all from higher education, many of you would be aware that the expectations from higher education is changing fairly rapidly across the world, and of course India as well. As an example, late 2023, early 2024, some of the measurement criteria for elite institutions that global competency or ranking systems have, like QS World Ranking and Times Higher Education Ranking, they have shifted their focus from just looking at innovation and the presence of entrepreneurship or counting patents to actually seeing what kind of commercialization is happening, how many startups are actually coming out, how is a university contributing to its national economy. This is new, but this is where the world is headed. Yeah, sure. So when we look at education and entrepreneurship, it has to lead to placements and new job creation. Our initiatives map across this with skilling, sitting purely under the education but moving towards placement, the government digital transformation which sits across because it looks at policy, the entrepreneurship education which sits again across both the paradigms because it has to result into new startups, the startup support innovation and research leading to new commercialization, new companies, new products going into the market. Startup support obviously with the intention of leading to more commercially viable startups, and the small business growth paradigm to accelerate the growth of small businesses. I think I just want to conclude that when it comes to new opportunities that are emerging in education, we shouldn't stop by just thinking about technology in education. We should think about how do we use technology to engage our students a lot more. A lot of what has been said, I noted, was about creating access. But if you go beyond access and think about creating engagement, that's where learning happens. That's where skilling happens. That's where mindsets get transformed. And that's where confidence grows. So if we look at that, we look at it for our initiatives, we look at technology as a key enabler. So if you have a tech platform, how will it enable hybrid education? Because youngsters, they're talking about, studying with other people. They're not talking about just doing online education. Unfortunately, that is the reality. Larger and larger numbers of young people want to be with other people when they are learning. So if that's the case, how do you use technology to create really, really strong hybrid education? How do you rethink content? What kind of new paradigm should you bring in content? How do you bring in AI for, just give me two minutes. How do you bring in AI for higher personalization for every single individual? And then last but not the least, how do you take teachers who are so important and make them into master facilitators who are really pushing their students forward with higher inspiration, higher motivation, and the ability to learn well using technology? So I think I'll just, leave you with that, and just to conclude very quickly that all of this is possible because our inspiration is Dr. Ramesh Wadhwani, a serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, who has pledged the major part of his wealth for social causes, and is giving back not just to India but across emerging economies to really advance all of this. Our efforts so far have been fairly large already, but we're not satisfied because we know that India is a very large country. We have 1.4 billion people, and for us to really talk about 150,000 or 300,000 students is really not enough. We're talking about getting to 1 million students skilled and placed and hundred thousands of new entrepreneurs started. Thank you.